Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we've got a very special Perfumers portfolio video because it's on one of my favorite noses of all time. In fact, maybe the man that even got me into fragrances like this, with how heavy into the fragrance game I am. Bertrand Duchaufour, the magician, is how I think about him, because if you give him incense, he creates magic. And we're going to talk a little bit about him, but we're going to talk first about my scent of the day, as has become customary on my channel. And today is a special fragrance too, because for the first time, I'm giving a full wear to Amouage Gentleman's Cologne. So this is a tester that I bought off of Goodsir. Sorry for the fingerprints. It was a partial. And when you're collecting old fragrances, sometimes you have to go for partials. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can see it says Gentleman's EDT, which basically became Amouage Gold Man, okay? So I will tell you a couple things first and foremost. Well, let's read the blurb on the House of Amouage, because I found this little interesting fact that popped up when I pulled up the Amouage house on Parfumers. There was a nice little breakdown, which I wish they would have done for Bertrand Duchaufour. But for the House of Amouage, who there are two perfumes in my collection that Duchaufour created from the House of Amouage. This is actually not a Duchaufour. This is a Guy Robert, which, again, if you watched my unboxing video from within the last week or so from Goodsir, this was one of the perfumes. Along with Gold Woman, which is right here, and it comes in this beautiful Amouage pouch. And so I will end up doing a comparison for you guys. We'll talk about Gold Woman more. But this is a tester. The bottles that were not testers came with really beautiful, exorbitant caps. This is actually the tester cap. Look at the detail on the tester cap, though. You know, this is flimsy as can be, but look at even on the tester cap, they took the time to put the detail. I miss old Amouage. Anyways, it says, here's a little breakdown. Interesting facts from the House of Amouage. The Sultanate of Oman is an extremely prosperous country, mainly thanks to its rich oil and gas deposits. Sultan Qaboos bin Sayed has ruled since his ascension to the throne in 1970. He has since passed away. Among other things, led the country from nomadic tradition to rich modernity with a trade policy friendly to the West. There is an exemplary healthcare system, a fairly stable social safety net, and a broad education policy. At the beginning of the 80s, the Sultan decided that perfume production, which has been a tradition in the Orient since the 9th century, should once again have a home there, and his sultanate should have a fragrant calling card. He founded Amouage Arab Wave in the capital Muscat and generously endowed the company with funds from the state treasury. French perfumer Guy Robert, which made Gold Woman and Gold Man, was contracted, and no effort or expense was spared to create the ultimate Omani fragrance with all essence typical of the country: myrrh, rosewater, woods, and many, many more. But especially the first-class frankincense of Oman, which is what you get in Gold Man. There's a fantastic frankincense note here that we'll talk about. The result was Amouage Gold. This and other fragrances from Amouage offer national identification for the people of Oman, a more beautiful symbol than, say, oil pipelines on one hand, and became valued ambassadors on the other of the country on the other. Gifts during state visits, but also welcome presents in hotel rooms, were henceforth Amouage perfumes, which adorned themselves with the subtitle, The Gift of Kings. For some years now, Amouage has also been available in international trade, a kind of fragrance globalization through a luxurious brand that brings Oriental perfume culture and Oriental richness from 1001 Nights to European skins and noses. Okay, so this is kind of talking a little bit about what the brand has meant for Oman, the country, and the people who live there, and the brand as a whole. And that's the reason why, if you watched one of my recent first impressions, I did a first impression on a very rare Guerlain called Jeddi. And I said Guerlain should bring, maybe I didn't even say it in the video. Maybe I was just talking to Eugene afterwards. And I was telling him that why doesn't Guerlain bring stuff like this back? Even if they pulled a Rouge of Dove and stuck it in a $1,000 bottle, it would be a cultural ambassador for the brand, if you will, that, hey, we still care about perfume. We're not just trying to sell $150 synthetic units. You know, we're not just trying to move units like it feels like they're trying to do now. And so on one hand, I applaud the House of Guerlain for, you know, keeping their classics alive, even though it seems like they don't want to at times. On the other hand, they could even do more. You know, if they brought back fragrances like Jeddi, it would prove to the world, it would give a symbol that Guerlain is serious about fragrance again. And that's what basically Amouage did for the country and for the brand. And for the Sultan, he was very proud that they were able to bring this tradition back. And now, you know, when I think of Oman, I think of Amouage. Obviously, they have, like they were talking about, the oil and gas deposits and all that stuff, which helps keep the country afloat economically, but also there is a big portion of the world's ambergris. Some estimate between 20 and 30% of the ambergris in the world just naturally washes up on the shores of Oman because of where it's positioned and because of the currents. And so you get beautiful ambergris from the shores, you get the amazing frankincense. So let's talk about this fragrance. So the very first thing when it comes to talking about Amouage Gold Cologne, which is, I think this came out, or I think they released it in this format sometime in the 90s, 1993, give or take. And it's basically a spicy, powdery fragrance is how it's described. But it's so much more than that because, first of all, the good news. When I sprayed this on for the first time today, I could instantly tell it was Gold Man. It is identifiable as Gold Man. It's not something completely different. So that's good news number one. Good news number two is this is completely intact. So this is a little 50 ml tester, and there's about 25 ml left. It's about 50% gone, and the notes are still perfectly intact. It was obviously stored very well, like Goodsir does. I've never gotten anything from Goodsir that wasn't perfect. And so the notes on this one are orange, lemon, and citrus notes in the top, jasmine, rose, geranium, ylang ylang in the heart, amber, patchouli, sandalwood, Omani white frankincense in the base, specifically Omani white frankincense. And while I just said that you could tell that it is gold, Amouage Gold Man, there are some differences. So from what I remember about Gold Man, and one day I will do a comparison video for you guys. That day is not today, but one day I will. I'll do a, you know, this fragrance on one hand, this fragrance on another hand, and compare it for you guys. This has a couple notes. First of all, frankincense is in the top, not the base. And there's a note of civet here, which there is no civet listed in the Vintage Gentleman's EDT. And the biggest difference, though, to my nose, is that there's this resinous myrrh orris root combo going on that mixes with the jasmine and the lily of the valley. You still get the jasmine here. You don't get lily of the valley. You get ylang ylang, geranium, and rose. And the rose here seems to be a little more pronounced in a traditional rose sense. So imagine if you took Amouage Gold and you plucked the resinous myrrh out. Okay, so you kind of took the resinous myrrh out. In the top, there is no dog rose, there is no lily of the valley, there is no frankincense in the top. It starts with heavy citruses. So you get citrus, floral, powdery florals. It's still very powdery, which if you love powdery perfumes, this is like one of the kings. These two are some of the most powdery fragrances I've ever smelled. And I mean, almost like literal baby powder. That's what my wife says. She's not a perfumista or anything, but when she smells Amouage Gold, she always says baby powder, which I disagree because I smell a little bit more, but that is what some people will associate this with. And so you remove the resinousness. You start with citruses instead of the lily of the valley, dog rose, and frankincense. And you put the beautiful Omani white frankincense in the base. So when you first spray, you're kind of like, okay, I can see Gold Man floating around in the ether somewhere behind everything, but you mostly get citruses and massive florals. Beautiful florals, but massive florals. And then as I've had it on my skin now for about 2.5 hours, and as it begins to dry, that's where you start to feel that beautiful Omani white frankincense come to the front, you know, it starts to rise up. And one of the most beautiful frankincense fragrances I've ever smelled, because it's a journey. It's not just, you know, like this, for example, Healy's Cardinal, which I also bought off of Goodsir, is just a straight frankincense fragrance. Incense. Incense is the main note, and that's what they're highlighting. Same with Incense Extreme. This is one of my favorite incense fragrances of all time. Maybe my favorite, by Andy Tower. And this is just a focus on that oily, piney, resinous incense. This is more. Obviously, you get the beautiful Omani white frankincense underneath, but then everything else makes it a you know, more of a broad picture. It's not just an incense fragrance, it's an entire perfume, and a beautiful perfume. Guy Robert, I used to think that this was Guy Robert's best fragrance, hands down, Amouage Gold, and I've never sprayed the women's version yet, but I will wear it soon, maybe even tomorrow. But there are some others that he's done that I've become more and more smitten with. Like, for example, he did D'Essence. And D'Essence really took me off guard. But for Guy Robert, these two, Amouage Gold or, you know, D'Essence, for my money, are probably his best creations. And then I would probably put Equipage third. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about my scent of the day, because it is the first time that I'm getting to wear the Gentleman's EDT from Amouage, and I'm really enjoying it. It's, you know, if you think that the civet that comes out in Amouage Gold is just too much for you, like in this version of it, if you think that it's just too animalic, and you can find one of these bottles at a good price. Goodsir is very fair, and that's why I like working with him, because he never upcharges me to a point where, you know, I feel like I'm not getting a fair shake. He always gives me a fair shake. And granted, I spent a lot of money with him over the years, but you know, finding someone you trust like that is important. So if you have someone that has a bottle of Gentleman's Cologne and you like the way that this sounds, you know, without the heavy civet, without the resinous myrrh, the florals are amped up, the Omani white frankincense is there in the base instead of a top note. Check it out. I'm really enjoying it. All right, so let's talk about the man of the hour. Let's talk about Bertrand Duchaufour. So Bertrand Duchaufour, he is one of the most praised perfumers. People love his nose. Again, I call him the magician. But his career began in 1985, which is when I was born. So he's been around for a while. And he trained at Latière Florissant Group in Grasse. And then he spent 10 years at Créations Aromatiques, then Symrise, working in their fine fragrances department. He signed his first fragrance in 1995, and it was called Amber and Lavender for Jo Malone, which is a brand I don't care for. And then in 2008, he began working independently. So some of his older perfumes from L'Artisan, he was in-house perfumer. You'll notice a lot of the L'Artisan perfumer creations that he did. He was in-house perfumer. And then in 2014, he joined fragrance firm Technico Flor, and then he's been consulting for 3 years or so. And then in 2017, he was awarded Perfumer of the Year by the Fifi Awards. Okay, so he is decorated. He's well known. So let's talk about some of the fragrances from Bertrand Duchaufour in my collection. So the first one, and these two Amouage are really two of the fragrances that kick-started me onto this journey the way that I am today. And, you know, of course, back then, I didn't know who Bertrand Duchaufour was. I didn't know he was the perfumer of note for these fragrances. I just knew that they are amazing creations, and I was just smitten with them. So the first one is Dia Man. And I've talked about this fragrance many a times on my channel. Jean-Claude Elena did the Dia Woman, which gets a lot of praise and attention as well. This is such a fantastic fragrance, and it gets a bad rep because people say it doesn't project, it's not beast mode, it's soft. And the thing about it is Duchaufour used notes like, of course, the frankincense is there in the top, with cardamom, labdanum in the top, which is another strange place to put labdanum. Normally it's a base note. But the twist here, and the thing about Bertrand Duchaufour fragrances, you'll notice there's always a twist. It's never just another boring, you know, citrus, pink pepper, vetiver. No, there's always something special with him. And here it's the peony. This is my favorite peony fragrance I've ever smelled. It's a flower that is one of the most beautiful smells you'll ever smell, but you have to get your face almost in the flower to smell it. If it's right here next to your head, you won't smell it. It's a very soft floral. And iris, plum blossom, ylang ylang with amber, leather, Brazilian rosewood, patchouli, and vetiver. So you have a little bit of the spiciness from the cardamom, a little resinousness from the labdanum and frankincense, but then it's that iris, peony, plum blossom mixture, and then hitting you with the leather vetiver in the base. It's just, you know, if you want to spray something and go to a club and you want everyone to smell you, you won't be happy with this. This is not what this is for. This is a beautiful office fragrance because it doesn't project very much. It lasts a long time. I have no problem with longevity. But, you know, this is a fragrance you wear for yourself. And if you want to begin to break down a perfume and you want to start peeling back the layers and you want to wear a fragrance and watch the journey unfold and try to get the different notes and all that stuff, Dia Man is perfect. It's a perfect fragrance to, you know, to begin with. You'll never offend anyone wearing this ever. And the beauty in the creation is, so this is 2002, by the way. And so this is the earliest Bertrand Duchaufour in my collection. Okay, so the next one, and probably the one that just made him take off like a rocket ship, is this little beauty called Timbuktu by L'Artisan Parfumeur. And I have both versions, okay? So I have the new version from Puig because Antonio Puig bought L'Artisan Parfumeur and they repackaged it. These were the older bottles that look like this. And the new bottles look like this. They kept the shape. They changed the they changed the packaging and the labels and stuff like that. And some people say that there has been reformulations. And what I can tell you about Timbuktu is this. This was never a very loud fragrance either. So it's not one where it's going to be beast mode and everyone's going to smell you. I think it's a little heavier than Dia Man, potentially, just a little bit. But what he did, the twist here is he kept the cardamom frankincense, okay? And he kept the patchouli and vetiver in the base. So there are even some similarities to Dia Man, basic similarities. But then what he did is he added more resinous notes in the base. So benzoin and myrrh help add a little bit of a heavier resinous base. And then he added two notes that are very strange and you don't find very much in perfumery. One is Kero Karundi, which is an African flower used in traditional African, I don't know what you would call it, ceremonies, dances. I think they even maybe make like a drink out of it or something. I heard. I'm not too familiar with it, but it's a white flower, and then green mango, and that green mango in the top mixed with the frankincense and papyrus is the stroke of genius here, because papyrus, this is definitely a vetiver fragrance. If you made me categorize Timbuktu, I would say it's a vetiver perfume first. But Bertrand Duchaufour's genius is mixing in something like green mango, which when it's hot adds this freshness. They drink green mango in India as like a drink. You can get this green mango like drink that they drink to cool down when it's really hot in India, and it's hot a lot of times in India. So you get the spiciness, frankincense, you get this patchouli vetiver combo in the base, and it's just so beautiful. It is so unique, so beautiful. The composition, as always, is top notch, and so you do get a little bit of spices from the pink pepper. But one thing I will say about the two versions is, since this was never really a screamer, the reformulation, it's not like, oh, they watered it down, they made it weaker. I don't know exactly what they did, but the longevity between these two seems to be very close. Maybe the incense is amped up a little bit more here. Maybe the details are more in the vintage. So, you know, you can smell the defined lines and the aspects of all of the notes a little bit better, if you will, in the vintage. It smells a little bit more like, you know, a blob, if you will, here, but a beautiful blob. And it's harder to pick out some of the details. So I feel like the reformulation may have just smeared the fragrance a little bit, right? So Bertrand Duchaufour originally had all of his little details and lines in there, and when they reformulated it, they just kind of smeared it. Like if you took a pencil, you know, when artists draw with pencils, they can like smear the line, they can wet their finger, smear the line, or whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about. That's what the reformulation feels like here. It's still a good fragrance. If you can't get the vintage, don't go pay huge money for the vintage if this is available, because it will still give you the heart of the fragrance. But the vintage does offer a little bit more, in the sense that the fragrance notes, the ingredients seem a little bit more vibrant. It's like, you know, the green mango is a little bit greener. The vetiver is a little bit more vetivery. The Karo Karunde is you can really see the flower a little bit better, that kind of thing. So that is Timbuktu, one of his masterpieces. And then the one that for me, for L'Artisan Parfumeur, this is the fragrance that would compete with Timbuktu for my favorite. And I'm just lucky and glad to have this bottle, because I heard this one suffered even more from reformulations, and it is Dzongkha. So Dzongkha came out in 2006. So now we're 2 years later after Timbuktu, and there are, again, similarities to the other fragrances we talked about. So keep Dia in mind and keep Timbuktu in mind. And what he did with Dzongkha is he took that spicy cardamom top, and he took that frankincense heart that's in Timbuktu with vetiver, and he took the papyrus and leather. So you're starting to see some of the same notes again, but he added a couple things. Number one, he added a lychee note. And lychee is a note that is found in, do I have it here? No, it's downstairs. But there's a note in Frederic Maule's The Moon, and that's a Julien Rasquinet creation. and he used one of the most gorgeous lychee notes ever. And this is the only other fragrance that I've found a lychee note as beautiful as the one in the Moon. And then he used peony again. So these two fragrances, and they both happen to be Bertrand Duchaufour's. They both happen to come 4 years apart from each other. Dia Man is the ultimate peony fragrance, but Dzongkha has some of that peony note as mortar to hold the fragrance together, I think, to add a little bit of a floral touch. This is it's so beautiful. It's so different and so well made. No one was doing things like what Bertrand Duchaufour was doing. And Dzongkha is a perfect creation, and I'm just glad to have what I have here, because I heard this one suffered massively from reformulation when Puig bought them. It's still available to be purchased, if I understand correctly, but the new one is not up to par from what I hear. If someone knows for sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is Dzongkha. So these two, Timbuktu and Dzongkha, are my two favorite L'artisan Parfumeur creations. And then he hit the absolute jackpot in 2008 when Christopher Chong was named creative director of Amouage. The very first scent that he made to celebrate Amouage's 25-year anniversary was Jubilation 25, and he looked to Bertrand Duchaufour. And this is where Bertrand Duchaufour really started to get creative. It's like I'm wearing an REM shirt today, and if you listen to Michael Stipe talk, he said that in the early albums, they were kind of, you know, staying within their lane, staying within, coloring within the lines. And then when things really started to take off, when Automatic for the People came around, let's say, they were pulling in everything in any instrument you could think of. Use it all. Bring in the banjos, you know, bring in the wind chime, any instrument that you could add to the mix to make the song unique and different. The band started to bring in. They started to really come into their own. And that's what Jubilation 25 is to me. This is Bertrand Duchaufour coming into his own. Oh, it's unbelievable. Blackberry, Divana, frankincense, labdanum, honey. One of the best honey and frankincense fragrances ever. And that blackberry note is just a stroke of genius. It's like the peony in Dia, the green mango in Keru Karundi and Timbuktu, the lychee in Dzongkha. Which, by the way, Dzongkha also has this masala chai note. So there's some interesting notes he was playing with, but he hit the jackpot with blackberry. There's supposedly real ambergris in this, because I told you ambergris naturally washes up on the shores of Oman. There is celery seed, rose, bay leaf, gaiac wood, clove, orchid, cinnamon, musk, moss, immortelle. There is an immortelle note here, but it's if you know it's there and you search for it, you might think you smell it, but it's almost like a ghost immortelle. I don't get a big immortelle note. There's also a Papanax, oud, patchouli, atlas cedar, and myrrh. Many say the best Amouage creation of all time. You would be hard-pressed to argue with that. Mine is a made in Oman bottle. You can see it doesn't say Jubilation 25 actually anywhere on the bottle. It only says it right here on the collar. So sometimes dating these Amouages can be tough, but huge fan of Jubilation. And I dropped this and hit the shit out of this bottle, and I shrieked like a little girl when this fell out of my hand. And the bottle is just a tank. Still continues to work and spray. And anyways, Amouage Jubilation 25, masterpiece. I don't rate scents, but that would be a 10 out of 10. Okay, and then we jump to the next year, 2009. So Jubilation 25 is 2008. Now we're on to 2009. He created Mon Numero 10. And Mon Numero 10 is also one that's still available. Also one that I heard is bitten by the reformulation fairy. But this is basically frankincense, cedar, red pepper, and cinnamon. And you get this, the red pepper here is really amped up, by the way. So you get this peppery, woody cinnamon with that beautiful Bertrand Duchaufour frankincense. Again, he's a master. You notice frankincense is in every single fragrance I've talked about so far. Frankincense is in all of them. He is the master of incense. And this turns a little bit smoky as it starts to dry down. It almost feels like, I did an early impression on this, by the way, when I got it in. I sprayed it and gave the channel my 2 cents. You can look it up. If you look up Mon Numero 10 on the channel, or if you go to my playlist, go to the early impression videos, you'll find this one on Mon Numero 10. It almost has this, you know, like you're thinking that maybe there is even a little bit of that Divana note that you find in Jubilation 25. There is something resinous underneath it all, you know, even though it's not listed, this Play-Doh-y, resinous, maybe like they took heliotrope and mixed it with a benzoin base. Even though none of that's listed, it gives that Play-Doh-y feel. And so, again, if you can find one of these older bottles, I hear that's the way to go. But I've never done a comparison or smelled the new stuff myself. So if anyone knows, do let me know. And then the final L'Artisan Parfumeur fragrance on this list is Oudh. And this one gets a bad rap, Oudh. Again, this is one of the vintage bottles. There are new bottles that are in this format, but I hear it's discontinued. So this is no longer available for purchase. And this one is challenging. This is one of his, Bertrand Duchaufour's, more challenging scents because he amped up the, think about Bertrand Duchaufour he likes to keep pieces of his creations. And so here you get a little bit of that cardamom, you know, spiciness with the frankincense, of course. Again, everything we've talked about so far has frankincense in it, every single thing. And Oudh does as well. And so he adds saffron to the mix, and there's a big saffron note. There's also a big cumin note, huge cumin in the opening. So you get this extra spicy oriental vibe with myrrh, patchouli, sandalwood, tonka bean, cedar, and then he used civet. And so the base has this animalic civet that mixes with the frankincense, that mixes with the cumin, and it gives off this challenging wear to some people. And it is challenging. It's not a fragrance that you go to the bar and hope to get compliments. No, this is something you wear because you've tested all of Bertrand Duchaufour's other work, you love it, and you want to know what he was thinking here. There's also a beautiful note of dates. So, you know, if you're getting the picture now of what he's trying to create, this Middle Eastern, you know, dates and frankincense and oud, I think it's worth buying, especially at discounters. I think I got this bottle for like $90 for 100 ml. For me, that's a steal. I mean, I'll take a Bertrand Duchaufour all day at that rate. Okay, next, we're going to go to the only Penhaligons I would ever consider buying. Well, I take that back. I haven't tested very many of them, but I'm not a big fan of the brand. But this is one that I would own, and it's not because of Penhaligons, it's because of Bertrand Duchaufour. This is Sartorial. So now we're jumping to 2010. Sartorial has a lot to do with this fresh pressed, dry clean, iron, you know, ozonic, like steam coming out of like a tailor's back room or something like that. That's the idea. This metallic, there is this metallic note, ozonic, aldehydic opening with violet, cardamom, ginger, neroli, beeswax. Okay, so we've got honey in Jubilation 25. He's now moved on to beeswax, cyclamen, linden blossom, definitely, lavender, definitely, leather, guarjam wood, patchouli, myrrh, cedarwood, tonka, oak moss, white musk, honey, woods, vanilla, and amber. Gentlemanly fougere, if you will. And this, I'll do a, once I give this more wears, I'll do a video on Sartorial. It really is one of the, it's like imagine Bertrand Duchaufour does a barbershop fragrance. That's it. It's Bertrand Duchaufour with his version of beeswax, lavender, and leather, and all the stuff he loves. The honey, the myrrh, but in a barbershop fashion. And this is why I would never buy H24. Because to me, Sartorial is superior in every way. And if I'm going to buy a bottle in that vein, Sartorial did it better than H24 a decade earlier. So that's my 2 cents on Sartorial. And then probably the one that if you said, Ramsey, you can pick a full bottle right now of any Bertrand Duchaufour, what would you pick? I would pick this. This is MDCI's Chypre Palatin. This is a masterpiece. This is, my God. It's like an Oriental Chypre, right? But what he did, and this is the first fragrance that he ever made. Actually, I take that back. I should have mentioned that Sartorial does not have any frankincense. So he's gone no frankincense in Sartorial. And then this is 2010. And then jumping to 2012, there's no frankincense in Chypre Palatin. But it's a Bertrand Duchaufour. So while you're wearing it, you're going, is that a Divana note? Is that a frankincense note? You know, like he almost tricks you a bit, but I absolutely love this to death. I mean, this is one that, you know, I have this 30 ml decant, so I'm like, do I really need a bottle? No, I've been able to kind of put it off, but if I could have one full bottle of something from his collection that I don't have a full bottle of, it would be Chypre Palatin, for sure, hands down. This is, I am just so drawn to this. Again, labdanum in the top, just like Dia Man, right? Labdanum in the top with galbanum, hyacinth, clementine, lavender, and thyme. So he was working with lavender in Sartorial. He continues working with lavender in Chypre Palatin, gardenia, iris, jasmine, plum, and rose. And some of the most succulent, like you're actually in the garden smelling the gardenias, like that. Beautiful plum. One of the best plums ever. Up there with Poison and all the beautiful plums that we've talked about in the past. I wore a plum fragrance the other day called Boss Elements. Well, that's not a plum fragrance, but it has a plum note. And benzoin in the base, castoreum in the base, perfectly executed castoreum. Someone like me who loves animalic fragrances loves the castoreum and Chypre Palatin. Someone that doesn't like animalic fragrances would still be able to wear this because it's so perfectly blended with all the other juicy notes. Oak moss, leather, everlasting flower, absolute, which is immortelle absolute, styrax, tolu balsam, vanilla. So you're getting the idea, right? But it's amazing. I mean, if you like his other creations, if you're a fan of something like Jubilation 25 or stuff like that, and you've never smelled Chypre Palatin, you have to do yourself a favor and smell this. It's full bottle worthy. It is, again, it's one that if you let me pick one, I would pick this. I would pick a full bottle of this. I would love a full bottle of Chypre Palatin. Maybe one day. They're just so expensive. And since I have this decant, I can justify not spending the money on it. But wow. And then not many people talk about. I think Persolaise loves this fragrance. This is a fragrance from Neela Vermeer Creations. So here is I've got a couple of these. I've got 2 of these. You can buy these from, I think Lucky Scent. They are 15 mils. So you get 2 of these for like half price of what a full bottle is. So you get 30 mils instead of 100 mil or whatever it is, 75 mil. So I decided to go the cheap route and get these little 15 mil decants, and I can carry it with me. This is Neela Vermeer Creations, and this is called Ashoka. And Ashoka is Bertrand Duchaufour doing one of the most underrated watery fig floral fragrances with some woody undertones. And just like there's a ton of notes in Chypre Palatin and Jubilation 25, Ashoka is done the same way, but with this aspect that focuses on this floral, milky, lactonic, watery fig. So the notes are lotus, rose, water hyacinth, fig, and parsley. It's a Bertrand Duchaufour. You're going to get weird stuff like parsley in there. Osmanthus Absolute. Sweet Acacia Absolute. Acacia? I don't know how to say that. Jasmine Sambac. Frankincense. Iris Fig Milk. Geranium Ylang Ylang. Fir Balsam Absolute, Myrrh, Cedarwood, Sandalwood, Vanilla, Ambergris, Birch, Haitian Vetiver, Leather, Styrax, Heliotrope. Wow. And it's so beautiful. I mean, green, imagine a green fig leaf that you just wrapped in these gorgeous flowers. Water hyacinth and rose and lotus. You know, one of the best lotus notes I've ever smelled outside of a Bortnikov. There's a Bortnikov here somewhere. Well, there was. Outside of a Bortnikov. Bortnikov does these lotus flower notes like I've never smelled before. This is the only comparison. And it's a true niche fragrance. It won the 2014 Art and Olfaction Award in the independent category. So you're smelling something amazing. You'd be wearing something amazing. It transforms, it changes, it's unique. I mean, Bertrand Duchaufour, he literally takes my breath away. And some of the little fragrances I just bought on a whim, just because, you know, hey, it's a Bertrand Duchaufour, have just blown me away. And then the last one, and again, unfortunately, it's a small decant, but it's thanks to my friend Jonathan, 1970. That's his handle. You see him in the comments all the time. I will do a first impression on this. I have so many first impressions to do, though. But this is thanks to his kindness. He sent me a decant of one of Bertrand Duchaufour's newest creations, which is called Corpus Equus, from the house of Naomi Goodsir. I would buy this. I would absolutely buy this. It's this smoked, it's almost like a smoky leather, with frankincense, of course. It's a Bertrand Duchaufour. Frankincense, rose, amber, this like smoked wood is what you basically get, like this. If you've ever smelled, you know, sometimes when you smell a fire from far away, you get that like, it smells different from really close up, and I mean like far away, like you catch a whiff of it on the wind kind of thing. You get some of that here with birch, cedar, leather, frankincense, musk, and patchouli. And, you know, for me, leather is an easy sell. But if you're a leather fan like me, and you like that strong leather smell, Corpus Equus is a niche fragrance that you very well could put on your to sniff list. I'll do a first impression on this video very soon. So, unfortunately, those are the only Bertrand Duchaufours I have in my collection. I wish I had more. Some of the ones that I am missing are things like Enchanted Forest from 2012. I don't have Avignon from 2002 or Kyoto. I don't have Or du Sorel, also from Naomi Goodsir 2014. I don't have Traversée du Bosphorus from 2010, which is like Dzongkha. I hunted this forever. Dzongkha was a hard find for me. Traversée du Bosphorus from 2010 is another hard find. I can't find it. I'm also anxious to try. He did Woody Mood for Olfactive Studios, and he did Chypre Shot for Olfactive Studios as well. And then Emile, who you'll see her beautiful comments in the videos all the time. I'm sure she has a lot to say on Bertrand Duchaufour. Mentioned that he did a fragrance for MDCI called La Belle Helena. And La Belle Helena, she said, is one of the most beautiful, underrated fruity floral fragrances you'll ever smell. I've never smelled it. And he also did a niche fragrance that I would love to smell called Into the Oudh. So he did Into the Oudh. He did Blousey. He did all kind of, Skin on Skin. That's one I want to smell as well. He did Skin on Skin. He did Vanilla Shot along with Chypre Shot. He also did Mon Numero 9. So I mentioned Mon Numero 10, but he did Mon Numero 9, which is less known because it's like this citrusy green take with shiso leaf, which I mentioned in the I mentioned when we were talking about Terre de Hermes Parfum. There's shiso leaf here. So, which I wore to bed last night, and it's beautiful. So, there you have it. There's a breakdown on Bertrand Duchaufour. I hope you enjoyed talking about some of these vintage fragrances like Gentleman's Cologne. And then, of course, Bertrand Duchaufour probably deserves more accolades and credit and, praise and recognition than I could ever give him. But at least hopefully I showed off some of the fragrances that I ended up going for in my collection, the ones that moved me to buy, the decants that I would love to own a full bottle of. Chypre Palatin. My God. So there you have it. There's a Bertrand Duchaufour Perfumers portfolio video. Do let me know in the comments what your favorite Bertrand Duchaufours are. Let me know if you have experience with some of these. Let me know what your favorites are that I don't have that I should go after. I love hearing from you guys. I love seeing your faces in the comments. I love interacting with you. A like and a subscription does help with the exposure of the channel. But again, unnecessary. If you don't feel like it, it's no big deal. The people, the real hardcore members of the tribe, that I want to find. A lot of people found me very early because of connections to other people in the fragrance community that I have, but it's the ones who are, not watching the streams or, who don't have the connections but who want to get into the next level of perfumery, who are done listening to compliment beast videos or someone hyping up Polo Blue or Blue de Chanel or whatever it is. They want to go to the next level. I want those people to be able to find me, and the likes, the subscriptions, the comments help with the YouTube algorithm. It helps with the recognition, let's say. It helps getting eyeballs on the channel. And that's what I want. I want more people to find me who truly love the art of perfume and are not, wearing it for compliments or that kind of thing. They want to really dissect the art because that's what it is. It's art in a bottle. So thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers. We kept it under an hour, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Bye, guys.